Things are changing fast, especially in Matatu culture. Just a few years ago, we had Matatus that looked like this. And now, we have these. Somewhere in the middle of wearing masks and following Upande's case on Telegram, we lost a key design step. There are more of that in part 1, but thanks to people like Albert Muridhi, with a very detailed bunch of ideas, trust me I read the whole of it, Clement, Nathaniel, Alan and Brian Bites, we now have a part 2. First on my list today is Soulplane. Everybody and their slow little brother know that this was not just a vehicle, it was an entire jet on wheels. If you are ever looking for a bipolar vehicle, pick this one because there is no one single color it missed. Pink, purple, yellow, you name it. On the front, he had double mirrors, just like any other reasonable Matatus of this era. One fancy huge one with a regular kienyeji one. His grille in all his versions were built from scratch and not borrowed from any other vehicles. As much as it takes expertise to fit in a borrowed grille, building one from scratch is even better. Initially, it had a simple face. Yeah, that was until someone placed a bull bar upside down right on top of the windshield, becoming one of its own kind to have that feature. Right below that, there was a tiny little moonroof fitted at the forehead with very detailed curves and body designs, including a front spoiler. Other than that, the headlights were pretty stock. Running off to the side, both rear wheels were half covered by the body steel, just like we saw from Kifaru. There are also minimal graffiti with design lines on the side skirts. The windows were pretty regular, apart from the creative window line drop that we saw from the Flash. On the top, however, there were moonroofs installed on both sides. How crazy is that? Crazier than Musiria defending a self-leak, I'll tell you that. Let's get to the back. See, when I said Matatus did look like loaves of bread, I meant this shape. She had a rare windshield at the top that took turns in playing moonroof, with prettier curves than you have ever seen even after spending all that time on Telegram. Not that I know anything about that, just forget I said anything. There are also 3 sets of spoilers here, one that was designed to look like a plane's tail, the second one housed several lights, 6 to be exact, and the third one housed the third brake light. The main taillights were, however, borrowed from the 2007 Toyota Prado VX. How crazy is that? Crazier than believing she's a 22-year-old, I'll tell you that for free. Let us go to the next vehicle. When it comes to rocking green colors, only 2 individuals can ever come near vintage. Offspring and Embarambamba, one of which is a disgrace to mankind and the other one has wheels.
Nataka kunyonywa. Nataka kunyonywa. Nataka kunyonywa kabisa. Kuja rudi.
I'm not giving hints, but vintage rocked it better. So, it is indeed safe to say that vintage is and was the king of this theme. On the front, he had double mirrors and a beautiful grille that was made from scratch. I will never stop saying that. Also, there were numerous chrome beads around the front, and if you know anything about the automotive world, chrome beads symbolizes class. He also had normal headlights, complete with spotlights at the top and bottom. Right above the windshield was a cape-like structure with the staircase design, just like we saw from Catalyst. On the side, he had huge chrome line designs running top to bottom on the front and back. Matatus today are plainer than your typical member of parliament's brain. The side skirts were also heavily modified with chrome patterns running from back to front, or either way, I don't know. There was also a slight touch of tribal graffiti and a couple of celebrity portraits. On the back, there was a huge spoiler specifically designed to look like 2, blending very well with the slight curve that separated the top part from the bottom part. The top having the rear windshield and the bottom having a bizarre design full of chrome bits, 28 to be exact. Please don't count, I'm sure you have things to do. The taillights were simple, rounded and perfectly fit with the aesthetics. And that is actually it. You wanna check out another piece? Okay, this is Phantom. In case you didn't realize yet, he had one of the best themes in the culture. Not necessarily in terms of color, that's how you choose toxic girls. It's everything to do with aesthetics. Right now, you can't ever come across a Matatu with that shiny goldish theme on a random Saturday. On the front, he had normal headlights, and I'm glad Matatus by this time were very easy on the headlights. Don't get me wrong, the game right now is on another level just because of the headlights, but these fellas worked with what they had. However you use this information is totally up to you. Other very common things with buses from this era were double mirrors and a serious kind of grille design. He did not miss out on any of them. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was among the first vehicles to have a tinted windshield. Although, his was outright clever, having the numbers 808 without actually having them, you know what I mean? No? Okay. Right above the windshield was a cape designed like, again, a staircase with the phantom writings. Like I said in part 1, most, if not all matatus today would slap in a lighthouse and call it a day. I got you. On the side, he continued his goldish theme, slapping on some very fancy spot trims. There was also a very huge V-shaped design that looked just like the one from Milkshake, and if you missed that, check out part 1. And just like in Milkshake, there was huge work put into window modification so as to accommodate this new design. That has to be acknowledged. Also, you won't need numerous noisy graffiti with this perfect theme color, would you? Good. Let's check out the back. See, if you thought Milkshake had a tiny rear windshield, think again. Either that or we both have different reference points. Adding on to the goldish theme were numerous straight strip lights, 4 to be exact, please don't count, combined with the usual modern taillights. And of course you can't forget the X design in the middle. On the top, there was a fin-shaped spoiler, just like the one from Milkshake. I believe these two vehicles learned a lot from each other, but each of them stood out in its own kind of way. When was the last time you saw a silver-themed bus? Never, right? Giovanni was one of a vehicle that rocked full silver, including rims, combined with a couple of black graffitis. That theme in itself is a vibe. The front was, again, very simple. 2 sets of mirrors, usual headlights, and big round spotlights. On top of the windshield was a staircase-designed cap with a knight symbol, and that was pretty much it. On the side, he continued with his silver theme, blending with the dark patches all around. Graffiti here was very minimal, unlike what you'd see on the streets today. And one of its biggest standout features was the lines running top to near bottom either side of the front and back, forming a K-shaped design on the front and a Y on the back. He also had one of the coolest lighthouses, comprising of tiny LEDs brought together, giving cool, distinct light, better than the visual chaos we see today. On the back, he had one big X-shaped design. Buses today would slap in a big back portrait and give you something to look at without really designing much. Also, spoiler alert, some of them are printable. There are also numerous small taillights blended with huge modern ones and old school ones at the very top beside the small rear windshield. And for the spoiler, just like Phantom and Milkshake, the fins took it away. One vehicle that followed Giovanni very closely in terms of design was Mixtape. Everything including the design language, cap, double mirrors was shared with Giovanni, except for the theme. He spotted a clear bright red theme. However, there was one thing very different, the behind. First and foremost, his roof towards the rear had this slanting backwards form. The rear windshield was tiny like all other matatus of this era, but right beside it and going a little lower, there were aesthetic lines forming a V shape. 30 to be exact, and please do not count, I believe you have things to do. Also, when it came to brake/taillights, he had one of the most I've ever witnessed. 20 to be exact, and that's not counting the ones on the spoiler. Okay, you can count this one. Its spoiler was the most simple, but unique, blending seamlessly with the slanting rear roof. I got one more vehicle to go, but before I do that, thank you very much for your support. This channel is where it is because of you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider. It helps. Also, turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss out on my particular brand of Matatu culture content. If you enjoyed this video so far, drop a like and leave a comment down below. I'm not famous yet, so I will personally get to it. With that being said, let's proceed. My next pick to finish this video is Arafat. This was one vehicle with one of the most beautiful themes of its time. Pink, silver, and some shiny purple. It was pure theme and very minimal graffiti, unlike buses today. On the front, he should have had double mirrors, just like his fellow comrades. But instead, they used the top mirror hooks to hang a couple of Arafats. Crazy, right? You know, because the name is Arafat, you get the drift. Of course, the front was very simple, usual headlights and a couple of spotlights. At the top, he featured a staircase-designed cap with Arafat signs. Underneath that were air vents right at the forehead. On the side, he had shiny purple pillars running top to bottom on the front and back. And on the side skirts, he had several chrome patterns completing the look. On the back, he had shiny grey color with purple lines forming a triangle-shaped design, 7 to be exact. The rear windshield was, however, very tiny with the words WD-40 written on it. I'm not sure how they related to anything here, but they were there. At the very top, there was a very tiny spoiler designed to house part of the rear taillights, and that was just it. This was a very simple vehicle with very great colors. See you on the next one.